Because Eala was carrying the weight of history before the world decided to notice her. People look at the result and call it a breakthrough. They see
No, you don't get to shrink her into 1 week, 1 trophy, or 1 headline. Eala was already carrying the weight of history long before the world decided it was paying attention. People glance at a scoreboard and call it a breakthrough. They see Jessica Pegula's name next to hers, a first WTA title in Washington, and suddenly they think they understand the story. But that scoreboard only confirmed something that had already been true for years. So the real question isn't whether Eala became a champion that afternoon. The question is why it took a trophy for so many people to finally believe she already was one. Champions aren't made in a ceremony. The ceremony is the easy part. The cameras are set, the music plays, someone hands you a trophy, and everyone suddenly knows your name. The hard part happened long before that. In the years when nobody was waiting at the end of practice, when a single loss could send her back to qualifying, when she was hauling her own bags through a quiet airport after a match nobody back home could even watch. That's where a champion gets built. And Eala lived through all of it before she ever lived through Washington. She didn't get handed that final either. She dropped the first set to Pegula 6-4, and that mattered, because the whole afternoon could have slipped away right there. Pegula had already beaten her once before, in the Miami semifinal the year prior. She knew exactly how to slow Eala down, take away her time, and make a younger player feel like every window closed a beat too soon. The easy story ends with the first set. Instead, Eala turned around and won the next 2 6-0, 6-0, and on paper that can look effortless. It wasn't. Every game still opened at love all. Every service game still had to be defended point by point. A big lead can trick a player into watching the finish line instead of the ball in front of them. Eala never let herself become a spectator in her own final. She just kept playing the next point. Her path to that final makes the win mean even more. Fernandez, Alina Svitolina, Naomi Osaka, then Pegula. 4 players who know exactly what real pressure feels like, and Eala didn't treat a single one of their reputations as a reason to back off. She respected them without shrinking in front of them, and that difference matters, because humility isn't the same thing as making yourself small. She can be grateful to her coaches, her family, the players who came before her, and still walk onto center court believing that match belongs to her just as much as it belongs to anyone across the net. You can see it in the way she carries herself, the flag she checks before she sits down, the careful way she answers questions after an emotional win. She knows the Philippines is watching every point with her. That kind of support can lift a player higher than she thought she could go. It can also turn heavy if love quietly turns into an expectation of perfection. Nobody should ask a 21-year-old to carry an entire country's hopes without a single crack showing. She'll lose matches people expected her to win. She'll pick the wrong shot on breakpoint and walk into a press conference without a clean answer for it. That's not failure. That's just what professional tennis actually looks like. Winning doesn't remove the pressure. It just changes what the pressure sounds like. Before the breakthrough, people ask if you can win. After it, they ask why you didn't win today. That second question has worn down plenty of talented athletes before her. Miami is really where the tennis world first noticed how fast she could solve a match. As a wildcard in the 2025 Miami Open, she beat 3 Grand Slam champions back-to-back, Jelena Ostapenko, Madison Keys, and IGA Swiatek, and became the first Filipina to reach a WTA semifinal at that level. Those weren't gifts from nervous opponents. She earned every one of them with timing and clean, controlled aggression. Pegula eventually stopped her run in the semifinal, and that loss stung, but it also handed her proof. Once you've been that close to the top on a huge stage, the top stops feeling far away. It becomes something you know you can reach. Eala left Miami without a trophy, but she left with information about her own game, and Washington is what happens when a player actually uses that information instead of getting stuck inside an old defeat. None of this arrived overnight. She trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, grinding through junior tournaments long before most casual fans knew her name, and won the US Open girls singles title back in 2022. By 2025, she'd become the first Filipina to crack the WTA top 100, then the top 50, reached her first two-level final in Eastbourne, won a WTA 125 title in Guadalajara, and picked up the first Grand Slam main draw singles win by a Filipina in the Open era at the US Open. Washington gave her the first WTA singles title ever won by a Filipina and pushed her into the top 20. The history was already stacking up long before that trophy showed up. And a ranking, as big as it looks, is just a snapshot, not a personality. It tells you what she's earned over a stretch of time, not what her ceiling actually is. It also comes with points to defend, because the calendar doesn't care how special last week felt. The next tournament starts, everyone back at love all, including her. What matters more than any single result is what she does with the doubt that's still there. Real courage isn't the absence of it. It's serving toward the line while it's still sitting in your chest. She proved that at 4-4 in that final set, staying with the next point instead of jumping ahead to the scoreboard. That's championship behavior. Not the photo, not the ranking graphic, just the discipline to stay responsible for the next ball. The Philippines should protect what she's given them instead of turning it into a demand. She doesn't owe anyone a perfect season in exchange for their pride. What she's already done can't be taken back by any future loss. A kid in Manila or Cebu or Davao can pick up a racket now and actually picture themselves on that court, because there's footage, a score, and a name to point to. So when people ask whether Alexandra Eala is finally ready to be called a champion, they're asking the wrong question. They're staring at the finish line and skipping over everything it took to get there. She crossed continents, rankings, and expectations long before that trophy ever touched her hands. The ceremony gave her a title. The years before it gave her the character to actually hold on to it. And that's the part the highlight reel never shows you.